Hey everyone, back with another video, and this time I wanted to talk about this here, the Rugger Messer, but two versions of it. Okay, but before we get to all that here, formalities out of the way real quick as per usual. So I bought both of these with my own money. The maker, Ádám, was aware that there was going to be content produced of them, but it wasn't part of the acquisition of these pieces. There wasn't any deal for a review or something going on. The general structure of the video will going to be the same as always. It's not going to be a review, so not quite as formal, but generally there will be my talking part after this bit here, and then after that there will be some pictures, some clips. You'll find that at the end. I will put timestamps down in the description. If you want to jump around, feel free to do so. If you are interested in what I just think about this piece here, the long form review is also going to be down in the description for that. So, why this video then? Well, it's because I don't often have a chance really to compare two versions of basically the same piece. I have sharps, I have training versions of different sorts, but it's rare that I actually have like the very same one in just a basically sharp version. It's like below a millimeter, basically what you would have before you would really sharpen it, because I wanted something where I wouldn't need to pay too much attention, but it would still be basically sharp. And then there's this fencing version of the Rugger here. And I think it is just very interesting how different they are, where the differences in the versions are, what you need to do to achieve two very different goals. Because this one here is basically a self-defense weapon of the German-speaking areas of Europe from the around about 16th century. And, well, this one here is, of course, a modern fencing weapon, where we have a bit of a different idea about what we want to achieve. Safety doesn't really come into play here, where it is very important here. So I just wanted to really just go through it a bit, take it from the top, quite literally, because one thing that I think is just immediately apparent is how different the point is of this. And that is just immediately because, well, safety comes into play, right? This one here has a very mean needle point, and that one has a thickened point of about a centimeter in width. It is still comparatively small, probably, maybe too small for some, but given that this one is so extremely tapered, it is just trying to get as wide a point out of it that you can without significantly changing the whole profile of everything. And the point is also immediately important for what this here is, for langes Messer in general, but especially for Rugger type langes Messer, because, small excursion here, as Uncle Le Küchner writes in his tome, that's on 35 recto, vermeint sich Eber Stier zu wehren, langen geraden Ort sollst du ihn kehren. Hier lehrt der Meister Bruch wieder den Eber und den Stieren und spricht vernehmend sich etc. Das sollst du also verstehen, das steht er im Eber auf seiner linken Seiten und will dir stechen auf deine rechte Seiten, so fahr mit langem gestrecktem Ort ihm indes zu seinem Gesicht und fall mit dem hinteren Fuß wohl hinaus. So triffst du ihn in das Antlitz, and now is the important part, und du sollst wissen, dass die Bruch mit dem langen Ort besser sein, denn die, vorgemalten, aus den Heuen, worauf die Heu können sich selbst vor dem langen Ort nicht bewahren, sie werden damit gebrochen, etc. Small side note here, I find it quite amusing, just the expression of mild annoyance that this fencer on that side here has. Very relatable, because that's basically how I feel whenever Ulrich stabs me. The point being a very important feature, and immediately it is something that you really can't reproduce. Not only is this an absolutely vicious needle point, it is also thickened. This here is 8mm stock material. It tapers. Just in the distal taper, it's like 8mm, and then it goes to 7, 6, 5, but it goes out to 7 again at the point here before it really comes into the point. And the training version is different. It's 5mm stock, and it goes to 3 and 2, and then back to 4 again for the thickened point. But that's quite a different story, really, that you have here. It makes for a very different feeling blade, but, well, in fencing, of course, we want a point that takes some of the impact. And what also goes into that then is flexibility. And if you want a flexible blade that is still not wobbly, because this is mesa fencing, of course, we bind, we wind, you have a lot of blade contact, and it can't be too flexible, but it also can't be too stiff. The original here, well, not original, but the one that is kind of like authentic, well, I mean, sure, it's metal, there is some flex, but there really is no flex to speak of that you could make use of in fencing. In combination with that point for its original purpose, very nice. You can deliver absolutely devastating thrusts with that, but that's not something that you want for your fencing weapon, of course. And as I said in the original review, it always astounds me just how much flex Ádám actually managed to get into this blade. The shorter the blade, the harder it is to actually get that balance right, because this is flexible but not wobbly. It's still comparatively stiff because it is a short blade, but for how short it is, it's really a good amount of flex in there, and that works together with the thickened tip to make thrusts that are so important, according to Le Küchner, more manageable. It's of course no replacement for control, that you should always be as controlled as you can in your fencing, for your partner's sake, also for your own, but it works together with your own control to make fencing as safe as it can be. And to achieve that, well, the blade profile just needs to be different, really. Another thing that the blade profile needs to account for is edge, because this one here is, as I said, it's basically sharp, not quite, but it would be there. And this one doesn't have any kind of fuller in any way. It's a pretty straightforward blade. Because of its profile, because of its thickness, it probably wouldn't be the best cutter you have in your repertoire, but you would be able to deliver some serious cuts with that. But for fencing, you want a thicker edge, and you can't have a like 4 or 5mm edge with this blade profile. If you just take this blade profile and basically just scale it up for it to have a thick edge, well, that's how you get these terribly overbuilt, dead-feeling heavy blunts that you can still sometimes find, really. But that's also not something that you really want to fence with then, because of the way they are different to control. And they are just not fun to handle in general, because as I said, they kind of feel dead. So the blade profile needed to be changed quite a bit. In thinner blades, you often then get this dumbbell shape. Here you get this kind of front fuller that you also see in Landsknecht's Emporium blades. So that makes the blade flexible, but it still has a nice thick edge that is not only nicer for your partner, still serious impact, but less surface for that, it also makes the whole thing more durable. The closer your edge profile is to a sharp, the more you will notice hard edge-on-edge blade contacts. There's just no way around that, really. And the more maintenance you basically need to do. And I can deal with that. I think it's fine, but it is not the best profile for every type of fencing, and I can understand if you don't want to do as much maintenance. So that is why this blade just needs to look very different in its profile. And even in parts where you might think that they would be exactly the same, like the grip, for example. The grip of these two mesas looks basically identical, but that is as long as you don't factor in the actual tang, because of course this one is much thicker, but not only that, it also tapers to the front. Both of these are fullered below the grip flaps, but this one is also quite aggressively tapered to the front and to the end cap there, because you need to just work with the tank to make it feel right, to have the right kind of point of balance for your purpose. And this one here has a point of balance of about 8.89-ish centimeters. It weighs in at about 800 or 786 grams. This one here is quite a different story, really, because it weighs in at about 585-ish grams, and it has a point of balance of about, it was, I think, 5.56-ish about centimeters. So that is already quite different in how it feels as well. And this one is not as bad as things even could get. I talked to Ádám and he mentioned that he had some pieces that he knew, some originals he handled, where the point of balance was basically in the middle of the blade. And sure, you can work with that, but it's not necessarily something that you really want for a fencing weapon. Especially if you want a lighter, more fensible, more flexible blade. It is nicer to have a blade that you can work with for longer as well. And it does help with controlling these cuts as well. Again, very different purposes, really. That just leads to two very different feeling blades. I like them both for what they are, but I'm glad that I have the luxury of having both of these, really, because knowing how this feels, handling it, helps me put this here into context. Because of the lighter blade, because of the lighter weight, because of the different point of balance, there just are some actions, switching of lanes, that you can easily get away with this one here. That wouldn't really work with this one here. This one, I mean, both feel like messers. And in fencing with this one here, it is still messer fencing that you do, but there is a certain kind of sliding scale to between Messer, Bauernwehr, dagger kind of territory. And this one still places firmly in the messer category. This one here is even more clear, though, because of the point of balance, the way you have to move, the way you have to switch from just hoot to hoot, just from basically through your points of orientation that you have. You can't take this and do like knife fighting, for lack of a better word. This one, if you don't pay attention, could turn into knife fighting because it is so light and it is a more flexible feeling in the thrust and everything. So this one helps putting this piece here in context. I like them both for what they are. They are both nice pieces, but it is interesting to see just how different they are, but yet still manage to be the same messer, really. So that also doesn't only go for this one. If you have a chance, it is always good to have a bit of experience to get some feeling for the sharp versions of the sword or the weapon in general that you are using, just so you can contextualize your movements a bit more. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to show off a bit. So cheers.